So it's January 2025. I am bored out of my mind and I'm looking for a project to work on. I didn't want to work on a notes app. I didn't want to work on a to do list. I didn't want to work on one of those tiny little things that people work on every now and then. And so I decided, let me work on a backend framework. You ask why? Um, I hate myself. So about a day went by and I started searching for things and resources that I would need to learn or use to build a backend framework. And after exploring the beautiful library of the internet, I realized you needed a lot of things to build something that actually made sense. Luckily for me,
Like, I need that.
that's not what we are doing here.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man. The facilities.
And yeah, Big Shaq's right. I do not have the facility. And so, since I didn't have the facilities for it, it was only fitting that I did what I needed to do. I decided to team up with my best friend, ChatGPT, and yeah, this went bad. Remember back when I said I didn't really need the middleware and the routing and all of that networking nonsense? Apparently, ChatGPT told me I did. And I also needed extensive knowledge of Node.js and JavaScript, which I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I love JavaScript. But anyway, since it was the easiest and the quickest thing to start with, I used it. And well, what a journey it was. I first started by importing the create server function from the HTTP thingy inside of Node and pretty much initializing that within my own create server function. But don't worry, there wasn't much of a problem because the other create server function I imported. Yeah. I was trying to be serious. It didn't work. Now, this is what your typical Express.js application looks like. Has the app dots, and then you have your request method, which you then use to handle whatever API calls you're getting. I didn't want that, mainly because I didn't want that. So at this point, what is going on is that you're calling a create server function, which is calling another create server function, which is handling the requests and the response for each endpoint that is created. But we still needed a way to tell the server what endpoints it should look out for. And that's where I had my first problem. I ended up creating a route function which just returns the path that you pass in and a handler. In our case, a handler would be a bunch of um, so this is pretty much how routes work. You first give it a path slash home slash page slash things I want to buy and all of that. Then right after that, you give it a list of handlers or a bunch of handlers. These handlers are going to come with the corresponding methods and then the functions that tell them what to do every time that method is accessed. That's pretty much how they work. But there's still a problem. Remember how we created a server? Yeah, unlike how Express does it, you can create a server and then initialize your routes later on. With the way I built Station.js, which is what I'm calling it by the way, you can't do that. So how do we fix this? Well, welcome to the beautiful world of arrays. Now, for those of you who are noobs and normies and don't really know exactly what I'm talking about, array is pretty much a list. Now that I think about it, most of you watching are not noobs. So I don't know why I'm saying this. I'm pretty much like, yeah. So you pretty much have to create an array of all your routes and then pass that into your server so that your server knows what route it should look for. Could have done it a different way, but I'm an idiot. Now let's go to how I handled files. See, the file thing was actually a huge problem for me because initially I tried to implement a function called serve HTML. Why did I call it serve HTML? Well, because in my stupid mind, I thought the only thing I would need to serve was HTML. Halfway through, I realized, wait a minute, I would actually need to serve multiple different things, from images to CSS to actual JavaScript. So I needed to change that. Having to write out an endpoint to serve certain files, for me, it didn't make sense. The other option that I had was file based routing. It seemed like it was going to be a lot easier to implement. That was a lie. So I decided to do that. It was kind of hard because initially I didn't really know what directories everything was going to be. And so I then had to make sure it was enforced and strict. I had to implement another parameter that we're going to pass into the create server function called options. This options was going to be some sort of dictionary. For those of you who don't know, dictionaries are more like it was going to be a dictionary, and the dictionary was going to take in three different things. Wait, it's not a dictionary, it's an object, you freaking stupid piece of. So each property we have inside of our options object is going to have a default value. For the public directory is going to be views, for the static directory is going to be static, and for the media directory is going to be media. That's if you do pass in other values like pages, for example, it will work. So when a user then goes to a route that ends with .html, the server automatically knows to search for it in the views or your public directory.
تكنولوجيا تكنولوجيا أشهد إنها تكنولوجيا أشهد إنها تكنولوجيا.
The same thing applies to .css, .js, .png, .pag, .jpg. You get the point I'm trying to make. There's a bunch of things I didn't really talk about in this video, like how I added a hot reload feature and how I handled dynamic routing and a bunch of other things. Bear in mind, everything in this video came from the very early days of when I was building Station X. And so yeah, this is the first time I ever edited and made a YouTube video myself, and it might be the only time for a really long time. And so if you liked it, please click the like button. If you didn't like it, please click dislike button. And if you have any thoughts about it, just put it in the comments below. The link to the code on GitHub is in the description, and you're also going to have links to all my socials and stuff like that. Until next time, this is Noah the Dev, and keep coding, homies.
What's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry, I forget words a lot. I can't remember the word. I'm not reading from a script, so everything is just going all. Okay, so because let's stop this and start again.